we were in the park. It got pretty sweating.
I just started the recording.
Yes, I did not.
All right. So I thought we could just continue from where we kind of left off last time, discussing the same little further, that what is Brahman? If we can't experience Brahman, what do we experience? Because we are all here for some sort of experience. And how do we experience Ananda, for example, which is what, we all want in life. So Vedanta has a perspective there, and I thought I could share that with you. In fact, it's a very unique perspective. It's called Anand Mimamsa. And Anand Mimamsa means um, Mimamsa means analysis, but a reverential analysis. So Mimamsa is a very important term in Vedanta, which you will, you'll have to do a lot of it yourself, and you'll do it and you'll realize it. Because reverential analysis means analyzing something that Vedanta is saying, not from the perspective of trying to find fault in it, but from the perspective of trying to understand it, try to find out what is it that I am not getting, so that I'm not able to see the message or the point being conveyed here. So it's like it's a reverential analysis. It's different from just having an argument and trying to put across your point of view and those kinds of things. So that is called Mimamsa. And one of the key things about Vedanta is to do Mimamsa. So a lot of Vedanta requires Mimamsa, because it is saying things which are quite contradictory, or initially at least very counterintuitive. So you have to think about them, and you have to think about them in the Mimamsa attitude. That's the key. So Anand Mimamsa is one little piece which is in the Taittiriya Upanishad, which is very, very interesting. So we'll go there. But so just to make sure that we have the basics clear before we go there. So remember last time we said that Brahman or myself, same thing, cannot be experienced. So, and you know why it can't be experienced, right? What does it, maybe I should ask you, what does it mean to say something is non-dual or limitless? So I think we know this, but I just want to make sure. So for example, so non-dual really means no dimension. That's what non-dual means. It doesn't mean just one. One and non-dual are different. So if something is only one, you can experience it, because there's only one. You can have there's only one sun in the sky, you can experience it. But non-dual is not one. Non-dual means it is neither one nor two. It has basically no dimensions. So can you experience anything? Does it make any sense to you to say that something has no dimensions? Can you give an example of something which is non-dual?
Space.
Space. So space actually has dimensions. So space is a good example, a very good example. It's the closest example to self or Brahman. But space has dimension. You can see space around you. It has. You may not be able to measure how far it extends, but you can see that it is in 3 dimensions. Space is in 3 dimensions. So that is, it just falls a little bit short of non-dual.
A lot of references to space and ether in the Vedanta, right?
Yeah. But this is actually a trick question, because there cannot be an example of something which is non-dual. Because if there's an example of it, that means there's more than one. If you give an example, and if there's more than one, it's not non-dual. So you can't. There is nothing. There is, by definition, nothing like anything which is non-dual. There can be only one non-dual. So if we say Brahman is non-dual, that means there is no possibility of there being any example of anything like Brahman. The reason why examples are given is to get our mind to slowly reorient itself to understanding what Brahman is meant. All these examples have huge limitation. They can only take us this far. After that, after doing a little bit of trickery on our mind, then then they stop working. Then after that, we are on our own to truly understand what non-dual means. Another example, maybe I would ask you, can you give me an example of 4 dimensions? So if anybody of you is a science buff, you would know that there is something in 4 dimensions. And that's called space-time. But can you ever imagine space-time? In your mind, can you conceive of something in 4 dimensions, which is space-time?
Someone walking.
Paula, you
Movement.
can't, right?
Movement.
Someone,
Movement in space.
Movement in
someone
space,
walking.
but movement in space is 3 dimensions. But you have to kind of imagine, okay, movement in space, but the time is also moving around, so that's why it's in 4 dimensions. But if I was to ask you to represent or conceive in your mind what 4-dimensional space looks like, we can't. Because our mind is only limited to understand. That's why relativity is so hard to understand for a layman. We can understand it mathematically. But what is possible is, having devised something mathematically, which is 4-dimensional space-time, we can understand what would be its implications in 3 dimensions, and we can measure them. That is what basically relativity is. It's a theory which conceives space-time in 4 dimensions. It talks about curvature in 4 dimensions. It mathematically represents it, although we don't understand it, we can't conceive it. And then it says, if there is a 4-dimensional space-time and it moves like this is what would happen to gravity, this is what would happen to time. And we see that happening. That is how we know that something which is in 4 dimensions is actually right. We cannot directly perceive 4-dimensional or understand or conceive 4-dimensional space-time, but we know from its effects that it must be true, because all its effects are validated and we can verify them. So it's something like this for Brahman too. Because we cannot understand what Brahman is, we cannot conceive of Brahman because it is in 0 dimensions. We can't even conceive of anything in 2 dimensions. Can you conceive of something in 2 dimensions or even 1 dimension? What is typically a 1-dimensional thing? A straight line is 1 dimension, supposedly. But can you conceive of it in 1 dimension? Whatever else you do, you thinner to thinner line that you can think of, it'll always have some thickness in the 2nd dimension for you to conceive. You cannot conceive a line which has 0 thickness and only length. It's just impossible. We have to put things in 3 dimensions to conceive them. You can't even conceive of a 2-dimensional plane because you will have to think of some thin thickness there in your mind. Otherwise, you won't be able to conceive it. So our mind is built for 3-dimensional understanding. And what Vedanta is telling us is that the root cause of everything which is there in 3 dimensions, which we conceive, is a 0-dimensional thing called Brahman. That's what Vedanta is telling us. And this 0-dimensional thing, because it's 0 dimensions, we cannot conceive it in our mind. But because it's only 1, there cannot be more than 1 0 dimension. Even me has to be that. If I am not that, it's not non-dual. I also have to be that. You also have to be that. Everybody has to be that. So that's the idea. That is the...
I'm sorry, say that again, Nittu. Say that part again. You jumped from...
No, I mean, if something is 0-dimensional, that means it's non-dual. You can't have more than 1 of it. It's the basic reality of life. I am part of this life. It's the basic reality of everything 3-dimensional. Then my reality also has to be that 0-dimensional thing. Yours also. So you can't have a separate me, separate from you, separate from Atul, separate from everybody else. The cause of that, if anything is 0-dimensional cause, it has to be only 1. So that is the mathematical way of looking at Advaita Vedanta. Do you understand? Are you following?
No, but you can say something is non-dual. It doesn't mean you have to be part of it.
Well, see,
I'm just saying, just
no,
purely
I understand.
logically.
But that's what I said in the beginning, right? If you say that something is non-dual, there can be nothing other than that. Otherwise, it's one, not non-dual. It's zero-dimensional. Anything, if you have to conceive of something non-dual, it has to be one and has to factor in everything else with it. Can you imagine? So let's say you are there and there is something else non-dual. That means you're thinking about it. That means it's separate from you. That means there is a non-dual thing and there's a you. Not possible. Because that means you've introduced dimension now. You've introduced dimension and space between the non-dual thing and yourself. And I'm not saying that something is non-dual. I'm saying this whole world, the cause of all three-dimensional activity, everything is non-dual. And you are part of that. So this is Mimamsa. You have to think like, you have to truly, for me, thinking like this sort of mathematically, scientifically is easy because I've been doing it all my life. This is how I'm trained. For other people, they may think about it differently, but this kind of understanding we have to have so that we can get conviction in what the first message of Vedanta is, which is that the root cause of everything that we see cannot be in three dimensions. Because if the root cause was in three dimensions, then whatever that root cause is will have another cause.
Yeah.
And that cause will have another cause. It's an endless chain. This is this kind of so you can't conclude from there, okay, that just because everything has an endless chain, therefore this is the answer. You can say there's a logical leap here. But that logical leap is made by Vedanta and it comes and tells you, now that I'm telling you, everything is the Brahman cannot be defined, it's zero dimensional. It is the basis of everything else, and it is not in time and space. Because time and space also are caused by Brahman. So, I mean, this sort of analysis in your mind you have to do. Because if you don't do it, you will not gain conviction in the most basic tenet of Vedanta, of Advait Vedanta. Okay, I mean, at some stage you'll have to do it. It's okay. It doesn't matter. Right now, maybe it's enough to understand what it's saying, even if you don't fully buy into it. But okay, this much you need to know, that you, the self, are Advait. You are partless. You're dimensionless. You cannot be experienced by the mind. Right? So that is Brahman. And like I said, just because that can't be experienced directly, it doesn't mean that it is not being experienced indirectly. So, and that's what I want to talk to you about. So then I have a question for you. And that is, just imagine that you're out at night in some forests of Brazil, outside of Moringa. There are no lights. And there's no moon. It's middle of the night, no sun, obviously.
Stars.
Only some faint stars. And my question to you is, if you look up in the sky and you look all around you in space, it's all black. So my question for you is there sunlight there?
Sunlight is there, but then you need something to reflect to show that light is there. No?
Right.
So there is nothing which is reflecting the sunlight.
Right. But that is the point I was trying to make, which is that there is sunlight all around us, even at night.
Yeah.
Right? But we don't see it. If I wouldn't know whether there is sunlight or not. It depends actually on where you're looking. If you're looking, the sun is shining into the behind you. It's night. So let's say you're on one side of the earth. The sun is on the other side of the earth. So the reason why you won't see the sunlight or the sun is because you're in the shadow of the earth when you're standing there. You're in Earth's shadow. Now you can go up like 200 meters, you'll still be in the Earth's shadow. But if you go up, a million miles, you're no longer in the Earth's shadow. Then the shadow, Earth will not stop the sun. The sunlight is there. So the answer is that actually at night, there are places where sunlight exists, which are not in Earth's shadow. And there are places where there is no sunlight because that place is in Earth's shadow. There is no way to know. For you, it's all black. But when the moon comes out, you see the moon. When you see the moon, that means that where the moon is, there is sunlight. Because if there was no sunlight where the moon is, it would not be reflected to you. You would not be able to see the moon. If the moon were to pass through the Earth's shadow, there would be no sunlight there. What will be? It'll be an eclipse. You call it the lunar eclipse. There is no sunlight there. But it passes through again out of the Earth's shadow, there will be sunlight again over there. So you know that there is sunlight where the moon is. Why? How? You know because there's an object there which is reflecting the light. If that object was not there, if the moon was not there or some satellite was not there, you would never know whether there is sunlight or not. Now, another question to you is, when you see the moon, what are you actually seeing?
Reflected sunlight.
Yes, you're seeing light. It's the light which is hitting your eyes which you're seeing, right? It so happens that the moon is able to take that light and, because of the reflecting surface of the moon, it modifies the light. It reflects certain light of certain frequency and absorbs others of other frequency and things like that. So that gives you a sense of form. But all you're seeing is light. And what you're seeing is sunlight, not just light. So this is a good example for consciousness, for Brahman. Consciousness cannot be directly experienced. It's like sunlight. You can't experience sunlight. You can only experience an object which is lit by sunlight. But when you're in the world and you see things, you're aware of things around you, that awareness is because of consciousness. That awareness is because of Brahman. And when you're actually seeing those things, you're not seeing those things, you're seeing Brahman. Just like when you're seeing the moon, you think you're seeing the moon, but actually you're seeing the light. Light plus name and form. That way, when you're seeing everything around you, you're seeing the substance of the thing, which is Brahman plus name and form. This is the second thing you have to really think about and internalize and do mimamsa on.
Can I ask something?
Yeah.
So now when you say you can see consciousness, in that case, the you're referring to is the jiva.
Right.
You're not saying I am Brahman. You're not saying Brahman has its own self-experience. You are not talking to the you of Brahman.
No. I'm saying jiva, but this is a tricky thing because jiva, there is nothing called jiva. It's jiva and Brahman is the same thing. But for the purposes of this, let's just
For the purposes of this.
okay,
Yeah.
saying jiva can see. That is why I said in like 2 lectures ago, right, that in order to experience Brahman itself, in order to experience Maya, as if breaks up one Brahman into the seer and the seen.
Yeah.
So I'm just describing how when people say everything is Brahman, everything around the world is Brahman, what does it mean? If you think of everything as the moon and the sun and the stars and this coffee mug and my computer lying in front of me, then they are not everything. Because you're thinking about, when you're seeing the moon, you're thinking the moon. If you understand that when you're seeing the moon, you're actually seeing the light, then everything is the same. If when you are actually seeing an object, you realize that what you're seeing is Brahman with name and form, it's Brahman, then everything is the same. Everything you're seeing can be seen as Brahman plus name and form. So that is how that's the second sort of main thing that we have to understand, that the way Brahman is seen or the way we experience is through reflected just, I mean, sometimes think about it. Why is it that the moment you see something, it's known? How are things known? Like, why, if I'm looking at that screen, the screen is known to me. I'm looking at this phone, the phone is known to me. How do things just get known like this? We never think about these things. But this is because it's because there is something called consciousness, which is the basic sort of cause of everything, which is operating here, whose property, whose nature is knownness. Just like the nature of light is to light something up. That's why you see the moon. You see the moon because it's in the path of the light. The light is reflected. If it wasn't, there's also, there may not be, there's maybe we are saying talking about sunlight, but there are all kinds of radiations which are always there. Radiation is all around us. Much of that radiation is being reflected from the moon and coming to our eyes. We don't see the moon because of that radiation. Because as far as we are concerned, the property for lighting something up, the property for seeing is light. That is light's inherent nature. That's light's swarup. That's why we see it. It lights up. That's its nature. The nature of Brahman, the nature of consciousness is awareness. Anything that comes in contact with Brahman becomes aware, becomes known to the one who's seeing. So that is
Not anything, right? Not anything.
And anything.
Not a table and a chair.
If it, yeah, no, I'm saying anything can be known because of Brahman, because that thing is Brahman, because I am Brahman, that is why things are known. That's what I'm trying to say. If we were two completely separate things with nothing in common, we wouldn't be able to know something. For something to be known, there has to be commonality. Anyway, this is getting very deep. So I get a feeling I'm losing a lot of you. So I'm going to stop here. But that's just, I'm giving you these 2 pointers because these are the kinds of things, if you really want to get deeper into Vedanta and really want to gain conviction, it will be good to think about this, to do Mimamsa in your own way. This is just an approach that works for me, may not be the approach that works for you. But, and Vedanta and the Upanishads are full of such analysis in different ways, from different angles. So, everybody can, you'll find something which sort of works for you.
Remind me,
If
what
you
is
go
the
to
first
go to
one? You said this is the second one. What is the first one? First point?
The first point was that Brahman cannot be directly experienced. So anything non-dual cannot be directly experienced. The second point was that all that is being experienced is actually Brahman.
Actually, from my own perspective, the second one is the easy one. In fact, I would even say that I've been believer of that for 20 years. So the second one is, like, okay, nothing new, bought into it, makes sense. The first one I still struggle with, but that's okay.
Yeah, it will require, it's not easy. I mean, I understand. It's very counterintuitive, but once you get it, it's very easy. It's not, there's nothing very fancy or mystical. You just have to get used to the idea that things can exist in other than 3 dimensions. That's the way to put it. And one clue is that there is space-time which exists in 4 dimensions. So, anyway. So let's talk about Anand Mimamsa. Is that okay? But you'll see why it was important to kind of introduce these 2 concepts a little bit. Which is, as Atul said, the first was that Brahman cannot be experienced by itself. And the second was that Brahman can be experienced as the adhisthana or as the substance of everything that we experience.
And sorry, this is important, but just for my understanding, both of those we are saying from the point of view of the jiva and mental experience.
I'm trying to understand your question. It's yes, we are saying that, but it is true in any case.
Well,
Like,
if
what
you
other point of
say
view is there?
Brahman consciousness is consciousness. So even if you say conscious, you can say I think this is the point you'd made last time, that consciousness cannot be experienced. You mean a mental experience, right? I think we had confirmed
What
that.
other experience is there? That's what I was trying to say. If it's not a mental experience, what do you mean by experience? I understand, and that is why I was trying to clarify, because I think that I understand this is your issue or your question.
Yeah.
The experience means a mental experience. You need a mind to experience. It is the mind which creates the three-dimensional space-time, or not the mind that creates it, but the mind that operates in it. Maya creates it.
Yeah, I think
what I'm
my
trying to
hiccup
say is,
is
like,
just the
you
same
can't-
thing. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Experience is only possible in Dvait. There is no experience in Advait.
Well, I think that's the same hiccup I had last time, because that's what there was always like this thing that, Carol's thing is stuck in my brain, which is that you can take away the world and consciousness is its own experience without a mind.
But what does that mean? You take away the world because the mind is part of the world, you take it away, then what is there left to experience consciousness?
That consciousness is its own experience.
Okay, that what I'm saying is, I can say the consciousness is its own consciousness. Those words, what is that word supposed to mean? If it's giving you some comfort to know
No, it's not a
something will-
comfort thing. It's a sense of, it's trying to understand. It's that there is awareness is awareness. Is just awareness. It may not be awareness of a thing or a person.
when you say experience, awareness, any of these things, you're creating separation. Because when you say experience, consciousness is its own experience, or its consciousness is awareness, then you're saying this is what consciousness is. Consciousness is not awareness. Is consciousness not awareness also? Is consciousness also not experience? So the moment you say these things, when you create these separations in your mind because you're trying to experience something as something, then you're losing the what Vedanta is trying to tell you here. You cannot describe consciousness in any way, either as an experience, as consciousness, as something else, as whatever. It is anirvachaniye. It is undescribable.
Chala, anyway, that's
Okay. So the Anand, are you guys completely tired now, or shall we do Anand Mimamsa next time?
No, not tired, but highly confused state of mind.
So, okay, let's forget about Anand. We can do Anand Mimamsa next time. But what is the confused state of mind?
Okay, at this state, I have one question. Then what exactly happens during enlightenment?
Okay.
You see,
Yeah.
do you experience consciousness, or you?
Okay. That's why I wanted to go to Anand Mimamsa, because that is where the answer is for this.
I think we should do it. I think we should do Anand Mimamsa.
Yeah, we can do it.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so what I was saying was, what Anand Mimamsa says is that just
How do you
like
spell this thing? About what is the Mimanta thing?
Mimamsa means reasoning, reverential reasoning.
Mimanta.
Mimamsa.
Mimamta.
Mimamsa.
Mimamta. Okay.
No,
Mimamsa.
S-A.
S.
S-A.
There's no S.
Essay.
No S.
M-I-M-A-M-S-A. A lot of S.
Mimamsa. Okay.
Mimamsa.
I was talking like Gaby.
Okay,
Master.
so what it's saying, and I'm going to summarize it for you, and then we can go next time deeper if you want to. So what it's saying is that, if it starts by saying that you can't really experience Brahman, then it says, think about it. The way to think about it is as if your own face. You can't. It's giving an example of your face. You can never see your face. If you think about it, it is totally true that you've never seen your face directly. Never. You may be very familiar with your face, but the most intimate thing, which is your face, you've never seen. You've lived your whole life, you can live your whole life, you'll never see your face. You can see an image of your face, you can see a reflection of your face. You can hear a description of your face from other people, but you will never see your face. That's just a fact of life. Unless you're able to project your eyes out and turn them around, you can never see your face. So it's saying the face is happiness. So actually, before I have to say one more thing before we go to Anand Mimamsa to make it easier for you to understand, which is my third thing. So the first was Brahman cannot be experienced. Second, it can be experienced as a reflection, not directly. And the third is, what is happiness? So Anand Mimamsa starts by describing happiness. What does happiness mean? So happiness is the same as wholeness.
Wholeness.
Lack of want, lack of a feeling of incompleteness. That is happiness. And you think about it, it's very deep and very insightful. Because sorrow is a feeling of lack, which is the opposite of happiness. A feeling of being incomplete, like I'm missing something, that's sorrow. And it gives an example of desires. It says, when you meet, when there is a desire, that means there's a lack. There is a wish for something more. There's a feeling of incompleteness. And when that desire is met, that feeling, for that time, that feeling of incompleteness goes. For that moment, you have feeling of completeness. And that's why you feel happy when desires are met. Now, it's a different thing that after some time, another desire will come. But essentially, this is point number 3, which is happiness is equal to wholeness. Ananda is equal to Ananta. That kind of a thing. So, again, we can spend a long time in discussing this because there will be a lot of questions. But if you can do your own mimamsa on this, you can see whether this is true or not. And the only thing which is truly whole, completely whole and always whole, is Brahman. Because it's non-dual. If you think about anything in this duality, it will never be whole. There will always be a limit to it. So anyway, this was the point number 3. Now we
But
can...
how can point number 3 exist with the other 2 points in existence? I mean, when you say that only Brahman can be whole, but that sentence is also illogical in the current context because there is only Brahman. So when you say only Brahman can be whole, what is there that is not Brahman?
Yeah, so maybe that sentence is not a good way to put it, but the difference is you remember you got to keep in mind, the first time when we spoke about this 2 weeks ago, I said 4 weeks ago, Maya as though takes that whole Brahman and breaks it up into duality. It breaks it up into a seer and the seen. And the world, because it's in duality, the world of the seen, this whole universe, seems to be like many separate objects. So again, it's a question of viewpoint. Like I said, if you're going to look at every object and say that is a separate object, I'm a separate object, everything is separate from each other, then yes, there is no wholeness. But if you're going to look at everything and say that is nothing but Brahman, right? Then there is wholeness. So you're right. And I think this also goes back to your questions for a very long time. The difference between Paramarthika and Vyavaharika and all of that, right? So it all comes to the same thing.
Yeah,
But
it is.
let's go take you through the exercise, and then you will see where this is going. Because it's also this is a prakriya, it's a model. It's not like reflecting reality or telling you reality. So keeping those three things in mind, now we get into this thing, which is, let's say that an example is your face. Your face is it's called mukhananda, you know. So your face, and there's a reflection of the face, right? Because that's the only way you see your face. If you want to see your face, you'll have to take a mirror in front of you, and you will see a reflection of the face. So he's saying it's as if when you see yourself, the reflection of Brahman, you know, the old example we had of how sunlight can be reflected in multiple buckets of water, and each bucket seems like a jiva. So the reflection is called the jiva. And the original consciousness or the original sunlight is the sunlight. So here, you think about the face as the original you, which could be Brahman, and you think about the reflection as the reflected you, which is the jiva. Okay. And it's reflected in the mind. It's actually reflected in the innermost layer of the mind, which is called Anandamaya Kosha. And this is why it's actually called Anandamaya Kosha. Because it reflects, it's the reflecting part. It's the one that reflects the Atma, reflects Brahman. And Brahman is fullness. Brahman is called Atmananda. You call it Atmananda. It's Ananda, it's full Ananda, or Bimba Ananda. And the Jiva is, that mind is the Pratibimbananda. In other words, it's a reflected happiness. So you can experience the reflected happiness, because the reflected happiness is in duality. You can't directly experience the original happiness, the original Ananda, which is Brahman. But that reflected happiness comes from the original happiness. This is the model that you have to keep in mind. In other words, what you experience is the reflection of Brahman in your mind. That's what you're experiencing. The happiness. Now, where does Anand Mimamsa come in? What Anand Mimamsa says here is, in this sort of framework, in this model, in the original and the reflected one, it's saying that the original, which is the original consciousness, is whole and complete and clean. The reflected consciousness depends upon how good it is, depends upon the reflecting surface. If the surface of the mirror on which it's being reflected is dirty, filthy, you'll barely see any light there. Or you'll see all kinds of distortions in the light, in the happiness, in the mind. But if that mind is clean and transparent and clear, what it'll reflect is very close to the original. So you'll have it'll reflect Ananda close to the original. So what we are after, honestly, what we are really after, what we all want to do, is to have that wonderful reflection, which we can experience, which we can feel. Because we know Brahman, the original reflection, we can never feel. We can never experience it.
No.
So if you keep this analogy in mind, which I found at least very useful, you can see what it means to properly approach life from a happiness perspective. It means, first, you know that original, deep inside, what you actually are is Brahman. What you actually are is happiness. There is no question about it. You know that. What you feel in this world depends upon the state of your mind. And the cleaner you can make your mind, the less disturbed, with less ripples, less impurities that you can make your mind, the closer you will come to feel the happiness which you actually are. Do you follow this? I'm not asking you to follow it like scientifically, this is just a model. It's just a way to try and, it's an analogy to try and explain to you. I can see Kiki nodding, but I don't know about Mukta and Sanjay and Rajiv. I can see Atul nodding like this.
No, I'm nodding. I'm totally nodding. I'm
Okay,
totally
you're nodding. Okay, good.
I'm nodding off.
You're nodding yes or no?
I'm nodding off.
You're nodding.
Sleeping.
Ah,
No, I'm actually, no, I mean, that was a joke. I'm in total agreement with that. About your happiness concept.
Not mine. It isn't. It is
But
like the Upanishads happiness concept.
Yeah, before you close the session today, I do have a more fundamental question.
Okay. All right, but I want to say a couple more things before we close it.
Yeah.
we can say that babies is more closer to the Brahman state than adults because
They're happy.
they are always happy.
Yeah, because their minds are not, they don't have as yet that impurity in the mind.
So the mirror is cleaner.
The mirror is cleaner. Yes, the mirror is cleaner. and that is the thing. If you really think about it, what if our natural state was not happiness but sorrow? Just imagine what it would be like. You would never be able to relax. You'd be looking to create ripples in your mind all the time so that you can stop the reflection.
Right.
Right? You'd never be able to relax. The fact that you can relax and you can get happier by relaxation is distinct evidence that your natural state is happiness. This is how Vedanta works. Just like I told you, you can't see the light, the sunlight. You have to reflect, it has to reflect on the moon. You can't see and feel the original you, but you can feel its reflection in your jiva, in yourself. And that is the purpose of Maya. It's to create this division so that you can feel this. You can feel everything, and you can go towards this journey where you start purifying your mind so that you get closer and closer to the Ananda, which is actually you, and you actually feel it in your life. So that was my first question. What if the original thing was sorrow? We'd be screwed. We'd like, no, we'd really be screwed. But I also thought about another thing, which is I have come across people who are afraid to relax. They're afraid to relax because they think that if they relax, they will find sorrow in their life. They have had so many sorrowful experiences, so many problems, that they escape by restlessness. If I tell them your natural state is happiness, they won't believe it. They'll say, no, my natural state is sorrow. Life is full of sorrow. And that is another impurity. It's an impurity which is at a lower level than the impurities that we can see, than the desires we can see. It's a psychological issue which needs to be addressed. And they need help, they need treatment. But if they were to understand Vedanta and to gain conviction that yes, it is not possible, at the end of the day, I am happy, their journey through their own life would become a lot easier. They'll still have to clarify their impurities. It's not that they don't have to. But they will clarify it with confidence. Of course, the problem is that it is very difficult to convince a person or for a person to understand that I am happiness if there is so much unhappiness in your life. It's very hard. That is why Vedanta says you need to be ready. It says, do first Karam Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, all that. Get ready. Your mind has to be prepared. Only then you're eligible to understand. So you can't just, so your mind has to be relatively clean for you to understand Vedanta. So you need that cleanliness first. Then you understand Vedanta. But having understood Vedanta, the rest of the cleaning journey becomes a lot easier. Because then you don't have any doubts. Like you will be in a state where you will never doubt the fact that actually your objective in life is to purify your mind. Because till you understand Vedanta, till you understand that your real nature is happiness, and that is the happiness, that is the well from which all your happiness is accrued. Once you understand that, then you will realize my only job is to access that well. And to access that well, I have to have a pure mind. So my only job in life is to purify my mind. Everything I have to do has to be to purify that mind. Then you will purify your mind. Because you're not going to be distracted by other pursuits, by other ambitions, or even if there are other ambitions, they will all fold into this overall objective of mental purification. It's also called Antakarna Shuddhi. Carol likes to call it Antakarna Shuddhi. So that is the Anand Mimamsa. And there are many little corollaries from here, many little things we can talk about and discuss. I just talked about a couple. So, what does mental purification mean? It also says that Vedanta says that at the end of the day, all impurities can be boiled down to raga dvesha. That is desires and aversions. Desire is one side of it, aversion is the flip side of it. Aversion is a negative desire. Desire is, I want that. Aversion says, I want not that. but it is still a want. So everything folds into this. And all of Vedanta sadhana, Karam Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Dhyan Yoga, all the Vedanta sadhanas are designed to purify the mind. That's all what they are meant for. So now in this, Sanjay, to answer your question, what does moksha mean? And there are two sides to that. One, what moksha means technically in Vedanta is having complete conviction that your real nature is happiness, is fullness. And there, by the way, that's what Mimamsa is. You can call it anything. If you call it fullness and happiness, it follows it has to be non-dual. You call it non-dual, it follows it has to be happiness, fullness. You call it limitless, dimensionless. You'll find that all of these things follow from each other. They're not different properties of Brahman. They are the same thing said in different ways. And that's the first Mimamsa. Okay. The second Mimamsa, or the second thing, is that to understand that happiness is equal to completeness. The happiness that we feel is also equal to completeness. When we say, I have desires and I get happy when I meet my desire, it's because in a state of desire, you feel incomplete. You feel something is missing. I want something. In a state of fullness of desire, meeting of desire, you feel full. During that time, you feel the fullness. That's the other thing. The third thing, which this is not trying to tell you, this Mimamsa, is that happiness that you feel is a reflection of your inherent happiness. It has not come from anywhere else. It has not actually come from the object of desire. We want lots of things, we desire lots of things. We think that because I got this thing, I'm happy, so I attribute my happiness to this thing. No. The reason you got happiness is not because of the thing. The reason you got happiness is because you reached a state of completeness. And the reason you reached a state of completeness is because in that moment, you better reflected the inherent completeness which you are. If you were not complete, you would not be reflecting completeness. You would not be reflecting happiness. So the source of happiness is your very nature, which you can't experience directly, but that is the source of happiness. What you experience is the reflection of that happiness. And everything that you're doing in your life Initially, you'll try to get different desires, different ripples. You feel that the happiness is because of the object. So you'll try one object, second object, third object, fourth object. All these objects produce different ripples in your mind. Sometimes there's wholeness, sometimes there's not. You're lost in this world, in this samsara. Over time, you realize, oh my God, all I'm doing is making it worse. What I need is a calm mind. So then you start doing sadhana for calming down your mind. And slowly, when you start doing that, issues which are under the surface, they start emerging. Then they will start having their own ripples. Then you get there. So you go through the process. But it's easier to go through the process if you know that your true nature is happiness. So moksha is knowing that your true nature is happiness. That is enlightenment. Realization is making this a reality in your life, which means going through the process of having some degree of this reflected happiness also. Not just knowing that you're happy, but also purifying your mind so that you can reflect that happiness in your day-to-day life. That is realization. Right? So it's not a simple one thing. The difference between enlightenment and realization. The difference between knowledge and making that knowledge real in your life. Okay. Atul, you had a question.
Yeah, my question was that, I mean, I watched your last session also on video.
Okay.
You missed it. But this has happened many times. Sometimes we get confused, sometimes we understand something, but we don't. So to me, it boils down to what you said today, that our mind is designed to handle three-dimensional space.
Yes.
Whereas what we are talking about is not three-dimensional
No.
at a fundamental level. So if that's the case, why the heck, whoever created us, why did they create the three dimensionals? Why did it make it so challenging? If they'd given us unidimensional thing, everything will be hunky dory.
Well, because again,
What's
first
the
of all,
benefit of the three-dimensional space that makes us struggle in this understanding?
So it's not, just to clarify, there is no answer to this question. Okay, Vedanta also offers no answer. Vedanta also offers some pointers to you, right? And in fact, actually, Rajiv asked the same question in a different way 2 sessions ago. And my answer to him, which was a little flippant answer, was, hey, you are the one who did it, not somebody else. So tell me why you did it, right? Because it's not as if some other nature is somewhere else, not you. You are the one. Vedanta is telling you are Brahman. You made this division into Maya. You did everything. It's not. So ask yourself the question. But really, I mean, other than that flippant answer, what Vedanta says is Maya's purpose is to get experience. This Brahman, it gives an allegory of Brahman as Prajapati, right? Which is another name for Brahma, Brahmaji, the god. So Prajapati was, happy and everything, but then he got bored. He said, okay, let me have a play, let me have some fun. So he created the world and he entered into the world as Jiva. So it's what they're trying to say through this allegory is that it is, if you want experience, this is the only way to get experience. If you're in zero-dimensional situation, there is no experience. So it's not as if that zero-dimensional experience became the zero-dimensional situation became this three-dimensional experience. The zero dimension still remains. It is still zero dimension. This three-dimensional is an apparent conversion. It's called adhyasa, which we can take up at another time. It's called mithya. But there's no other really, really good answer to it. Go through this experience and see as experiences. It's a game. Look at it as a game. Try to find the solution to how to maximize this game. Anyway, I'm sure it's not a very good answer, but I have you won't have this,
Dheeraj, I have a
you won't have this question. At least I don't have this question anymore. Because because it's not because I feel that we are not in a three-dimensional world. We still are in a zero-dimensional world. We are it's an apparent three-dimensional world. But for you, that zero-dimensional world is conceptual and sort of, flimsy, or could maybe there, maybe not there, but the three-dimensional world is very real.
And the why only, sorry.
I was asking, so for Dheeraj, for you, is it the opposite? I mean, is the three-dimensional kind of vague and foggy and
no, it's not vague and foggy. No, it's not. But I think I have over time greater conviction in the fact that this is not all that it is not what it seems.
But how does it impact your daily life though? With that, it may not. I understand it's not.
That's a longer conversation. I don't know how much it affects. It does impact. I don't know how much it impacts. I don't know how. I mean, it's like we said, mental purification is the journey, right? And I have a huge agenda in front of me in terms of mental purification. It will keep me very busy, so for a very long time. So, but anyway.
I was trying to get to what does success look like,
You have to define it, yeah. I mean, it's up to you to define the success. You have to see your own what works for you. Everybody is different.
I think success depends on what your goal is. If you can reach your goal, you're successful. If you can't, you're unsuccessful.
In the context of what we are discussing, there is no goal.
Jivan
There
Mukta.
is a goal. Yeah.
Jivan Mukta should be our goal.
At least the way I understand it, there is no goal. There is,
Realization. I mean, what Nittu said earlier, at least for me, I feel like that's a very vivid, clear goal.
If you want to make it that, if you like, Vedanta says that at the end, so it starts by, this is very interesting. I was listening to it yesterday. So you can say there are 4 purusharthas, right? Moksha, dharma, all this. There are 4 goals. But it says at the end of the day, there is only one goal, and that goal is happiness. That is a universal goal for everybody. Everybody wants to be happy.
Which we achieve multiple times a day.
Yes.
Yeah, and then you lose multiple times a day by definition.
Sure. Of course. Yeah, but what I'm saying is that cannot be the goal, because that's like Mark Twain saying that.
Okay, I'm just telling you first what Vedanta says. Then you can, okay. So it says that the goal is sort of happiness, not the kind of happiness you're talking about, but contentment. A happiness which stays with you. That is the goal. And now I lost my train of thought. So what was I saying from there? And you got to find your own way. Vedanta has given you its understanding of what that happiness means, where it comes from, and how to get there. But at the end of the day, you've got to find your own way. Yeah, that's what I was trying to say. But yeah, but Atul, you're saying you don't agree that happiness is the goal. Sorry.
No, I'm totally in agreement with that. Happiness, contentment. But I'm saying that from that point of view, I'm there, and I'm actually happy with the fact that it happens multiple times a day. So in other words, it's not a permanent thing.
You'll get bored with happiness.
Yeah, and it's a reminder. It's a reminder of the world.
Right.
So no, I'm totally in agreement with that. Your goal is contentment and happiness. I'd rather take that than any other thing like moksha, enlightenment, nirvana, and all that. So when you say that goal is happiness and contentment, I'm 100% in. or have been in for some time.
Yeah. And Ananda Mimamsa is a way to get there. It describes something. This Ananda Mimamsa is a way to get there.
And you know, even though we didn't talk much about this, and we'll probably discuss it later, my own interpretation of your Anand Mimamsa is that it's, and I'll say it in a sort of a very street language, is that it allows you to look for the silver lining in everything. In other words, when you experience something painful or bad, try to analyze it from the point of view, what's in it. There is a message in there. There is a the reason you're going through this is because you need to either learn something, or because you need to change something, or you need to, something. So in other words, look for a silver lining even in a disaster.
Yeah.
Anand
That's a good way to look at it, I think.
Because are human beings born complete? And, we create this sense of incompleteness in this world. But what are your thoughts on that?
No. That Vedanta is very clear. Human beings are not born complete. The reason that human beings are born is because of incompleteness. That's why Vedanta says after moksha, there's no rebirth. Because the rebirth it's the reason why it's a law of karma, right? That's how they see it. You have desires. Because of that, you do actions. Those actions have results. Those results create samskar. Those samskars stay with you. Some of those samskars create new actions which are done in this life itself. Some of the samskars go into your causal body, which is your third body, the Anandamaya Kosha, and stay there as impurities. And when you die, you get rid of the physical body, you get a new body. Some of those samskars are taken out of the causal body. They're called, they become karmas for this particular life, prarabdha karmas. And to exhaust those karmas, a new body is given, and then you exhaust those karmas. So this keeps going. So there's a stock of samskar in your causal body, which is huge. So moksha means, so the other thing which I very important, I forgot to mention to you about Anand Mimamsa, but thanks for bringing that up. What Anand Mimamsa says is there are two ways to get completeness in life. In your reflected mind. One way is by meeting a desire. And what you find is that is a impossible way, because you have desires, meeting them will create new desires. In the short run, you may feel happiness, but eventually it creates more desires. So it says that the sustained and a good way, the one that it recommends, is called Vairagya. Vairagya means you develop a distance between the desires and yourself. Through knowledge, you burn this stock of samskaras which are there in your mind. And when that happens, there is no need for a new life. And the way I look at it is, although Vedanta doesn't say it, do you want to be born again? If you want to be born again, absolutely you still have desires, you still have wish. When I want to be born again, I'm not ready to say, hey, I'm done. I want to go into like nothingness. I don't want to say, right? So when you say that, that means there are desires. That means your journey is going to continue. There will be a time when you will not feel like that. When that reflected happiness will be so big in your life that you're not. This question also won't bother you. You just be so satisfied, which is called realization. When that happens, those samskaras burn away, which means you don't have more rebirth. So rebirth only happens. Human life only happens because of samskaras, which still need to be exhausted. So yes, we are not born wise. We are born ignorant, always. And we can take different kinds of lives, but the only lifetime when we have the wherewithal to gain knowledge and move towards moksha is the human life. Because in human life, there is something called free will. And exercising our free will, we can say, this is the path I want to take. Whereas most other life forms, they don't have free will. They just instinctively, whatever your karmas are, you'll just keep doing them. That's Vedanta's story. Mukta, बहुत नींद आ गई, बस करें?
नहीं, नींद नहीं आई, बहुत सारा फूड फॉर थॉट है.
चलो ठीक है फिर. Any other, anything else? Shall we call it a night or day, depending on where we are?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
ठीक है. So we'll continue next time. And I mean, I mean, I know that it's sort of first time and I've said a lot of things, and I'm not calibrated enough as a teacher to know exactly how much to say. So I just throw it out there, and then I leave it to you guys to figure it out. But it's a good. This is a I found it very interesting and very useful guide. This Anand Mimamsa thing.
It's very complicated, at least for me.
Yeah, because Mukta, you have to understand, you're there at 9:30 at night. After a very heavy day.
Okay.
And this is being shown fed to you through a fire hose.
नहीं, वो सारे ही आज तो मतलब like all the dimensions thing, and I think all
Don't
the
worry about that.
pointers, they were like, I have to
Don't-
listen to it again and then think about it.
No, Mukta, see, honestly, my suggestion to you is not even think about it, because like I was telling before that also, everybody has their orientation in the mind, a way of thinking, right? All my life, I've been thinking like this, right? It's the left side of my brain which has been more active than the right side. Vedanta gives you different ways to approach something. Some of those approaches are much more human, and they give examples of actual connections of people, which are easier to understand. For
Yeah.
me, this mathematical thing is like, because I have some background in science. It's like I needed to align the things in my head. So that is why. But I have come to realize that कोई फायदा नहीं है. I mean, at the end of the day, it's only a question of I'm just responding to the questions in my mind. That's all. My mind has these kinds of questions. Your mind has different kind of questions. All at the end of the day, you just need to see what it's saying and find your own way to understand and believe what it's saying. So I would honestly, I would say, forget about these dimensions.
I would prefer to.
Yes, forget about it. What it's saying is, the thing that you have to understand is that Brahman, which is your real self, cannot be known directly. And that this Brahman, which is yourself, real self, is being reflected in everything you know. This is actually intuitive if you think about it a little bit. Because जो भी तुम देख रहे हो, वो सब तुम्हारी अपनी reflection है. That's what it's trying to tell you.
That I understand. But
Yes.
this dimension and all
नहीं.
was too much.
Dimensions को भूल जाओ. Dimensions, I don't know why I even introduced it, honestly. Just forget about it. But really,
But
this is all it's saying.
I found it quite interesting from your angle, Dheeraj. It's a new dimension we have introduced, and if we keep on thinking over it, we might get another lead. Yeah.
I saw Paula, right? So when I see Paula, I think of quantum physics and relativity. maybe that's why I got.
I also found it interesting.
Okay.
Paula is not
Dheeraj,
coming to Delhi. Only Atul is coming.
This
No.
time
No, she's not.
she got sick because of the pollution. So believe it or not, they prefer coming to Delhi in July.
You believe it now. The pollution
We
is
go
much
in July.
better.
So we are coming in July.
Okay,
So-
that very bad weather that time.
Yeah, but she said that she can tolerate the heat better than she can tolerate the pollution. So
It's heat
Actually,
plus
lots
humidity.
July
Yeah, but
Maybe
that July
turn
was
off the
exceptional.
recording, Nitu.
Okay, are we
And
done?
Gabriel Cocho.
Yeah, Gabriel is coming in July too. Yeah.